Welcome back to the second video of Erickson's psychosocial theory. This video will explain the 8 stages of Erickson's theory of psychosocial development. At the end of this video, you will be able to understand the polarities of the 8 stages of Erickson's psychosocial development theory and the virtue that has to be developed in resolving the crisis at every stage. As indicated earlier, Erickson had identified 8 stages through which a person passes from infancy to late adulthood. At every stage, a person is said to be confronted with a conflict or a crisis or a challenge and thereby questions himself or herself. Then, by adopting certain virtues and establishing a better relationship with significant others, they try to resolve the crisis, master the challenge, and find a realistic solution to their question. Let us see all of these stages in detail. The first stage is the polarities of trust versus mistrust. The age span of this polarity is from birth to 2 years. The question that comes to the mind of every child during this stage is, can I trust the world? And the virtue that has to be developed is hope. It's a first stage of Erickson's theory and which centers around the infant's interaction with the world and resulting trust or mistrust. An infant develops trust or mistrust based on its biological needs being met by the caregivers, mainly the parents. At this stage, an infant is completely helpless and dependent on parents for its survival. The action of the parents or caregivers are valuable to the infant's relative understanding of the world as they are the immediate world to an infant. Warmth, immediacy and consistency of the parents make the child to feel loved and secure. And this leads to the development of trust towards the world. Failed or delayed gratification of the basic needs by the parents make the infant feel unwanted and insecure, which causes a sense of mistrust, and later in life it causes anxiety, fear, suspicion, withdrawal and lack of confidence. The virtue of hope can be developed through achieving complete crisis resolution. The second stage is on the polarities between autonomy and shame and doubt. Age span is 2 to 4 years. The question that comes to the mind of every child at this stage is it okay to be me? And the virtue that has to be developed is willpower. As toddlers begin to explore their surroundings, they understand that they can control their actions and get desired results. Though parents are still the strong base of security for the children, they venture out to assert their will. During this stage, the child prefers to do everything by self. If such efforts are permitted and encouraged by the parents, the child becomes confident in the resolution of crisis by self, that is what we call it as sense of autonomy. But if parents or caregivers are punitive or demanding, overprotective or criticizing, and self-sufficiency will happen and the child will become ashamed and have low self-confidence. That is, in other words, as per Erickson, it is a sense of shame and doubt. Inadequately resolving crisis and may develop low self-esteem. The third stage is the polarities between initiative and guilt. Age span here is 4 to 5 years. The question in mind is that, is it okay for me to do, move and act in the way I think? The virtue that develops in the child is the purpose. The initiative is about taking up new tasks voluntarily, planning and putting them into action. At this stage, the children's actions are purposive and will like to start and finish the actions themselves. Also, as they develop social interactions, they plan activities and initiate them with others. If parents or the teachers provide encouragement and support to such efforts, the child will develop his or her initiative sense and confidence in leading others. But if instead adults criticize or belittle or discourage the efforts in self-initiated activities, the children develop a sense of guilt over their needs and desires, which may inhibit their creativity. Hence, the virtue of purpose is developed through achieving complete crisis resolution. The fourth stage is the polarities of industry versus inferiority. Age span is 5 to 12 years, and the question in mind is that, can I contribute to the world of people and things? The virtue that will be developed is competence. As the children enter primary school, purpose precedes play. If the child has met with failure during the previous stages, this stage will be more challenging, as this is when the comparison of self with others start. A child developing self-confidence or inferiority is based on the level of conflict during this stage and is important as this virtue tends to persist in life. Peers, teachers and parents make a crucial contribution to the development of industry or inferiority. With peers, a sense of competence and pride is developed through proficiency in play and studies. Also, the recognition and praise from teachers and parents for similar efforts further enhance the sense of competence and confidence. On the other hand, the child may have difficulty with the sense of competence when there is bullying, ridiculing, comparing, or punishing for not being proficient in studies or play. This may lead to the development of feelings of self-doubt or inferiority, which can have an everlasting impact on life. The virtue of competence can be developed through achieving complete crisis resolution. The fifth stage is a very important stage which talks about the polarities of identity versus role confusion. Age span is for 13 to 19 years and the question in mind is, who am I and what can I be? The virtue is fidelity. Adolescence is a critical period in developing ego identity. Ego identity is a self-concept that an individual develops through interactions with the society or environment and is prone to change with new experiences. The adolescent gives more importance to independence and sense of self. And it is also a period of developing sexual identity. This stage is a transition period from childhood to adulthood, and here begins a necessity to reflect on the roles that they will play as adults. This period may cause some confusion in themselves and raise the questions of who am I, what I am capable of, what do I achieve. As a result, the adolescents explore various ideas, roles and behaviors to find a sense of self. If the adolescent is encouraged and reinforced in personal exploration, it will enable the individual to become adequately self-confident, have better self-control and independence. But the ones who are doubtful or discouraged of personal exploration will continue to experience role confusion. Erickson is the first one to coin the term identity crisis. The crisis that occurs at every stage is more pronounced at this stage, for this is a stage when the conversion from childhood to adulthood happens. The defining moment in human development is, by all accounts, the compromise between the individual one wishes to become and the individual society anticipates that one should turn into. This development of self-concept will be set up by constructing previous encounters with expectations of things to come. Of all the 8 life stages in general, this stage relates to the important juncture in life. The virtue of fidelity should be developed by achieving complete crisis resolution. And the 6th stage is about the polarity between intimacy and isolation. Age span is 20 to 39 years. The question in mind that comes to the adult here is, can I love? And the virtue that has been developed is love. The conflict related to this stage is more pronounced by the age of 30. At the initial period of the stage, the residues of the confusion between identity and role confusion still linger, but gradually it gets settled. After working on their identities, the people now are ready to get into a long-term relationship and commitment with others. They develop the capacity for forming reciprocal relationships that include intimacy, sacrifices, and compromises. Sometimes people get into avoidance of intimate relationship due to fear of abandonment or fear of commitment, or perhaps because of their own need for being alone, leading to a sense of isolation, loneliness, and even depression. The virtue of love can be developed through achieving complete crisis resolution at this stage. Then let us see about the 7th stage, the polarities of generativity versus stagnation. Age span is 40 to 64 years. The question in mind that comes to the adult here in this age span is, can I make my life count? Virtue is care. Generativity concerns creating and nurturing the next generation. Respectable work and disciplined life are the results of generativity. The generativity involves a broader application of responsibility and commitment to family, relationship, vocation, and society. The developmental task of this stage involves nurturing and guiding the next generation and executing civil responsibilities. A person experiences generativity when he or she has a fulfilling job, successful marriage and family, and commitment towards civic responsibilities. In contrast, a person can experience stagnation on failing to be adequately productive, self-centered, and not taking up civic responsibilities. The virtue of care can be developed through achieving complete crisis resolution. Then comes the last stage of Erickson'S, the polarities of ego integrity versus despat. Age span is 65 years and beyond it. Question in mind is it okay to have been me? And the virtue that has to be developed is wisdom. As an individual grows older and becomes a senior citizen, he or she decreases productivity and adapts to a retired life. This is a stage during which the individual reflects or reminisces on his or past accomplishment. If the person feels that life had been productive and fulfilling, it leads to a successful life, then the ego integrity develops. At the same time, if he or she finds the life to have been unproductive or failed in achieving goals, the person develops dissatisfaction and despair towards self and life and may end up with contempt for life. The virtue of wisdom can be developed through achieving complete crisis resolution. Hope this video had given you an insight of the 8 polarities with the positive and negative outcomes held by the virtue that has to be developed for every stage. The next video will deal with the relationship of the approaches of counseling to the psychosocial theory. Thank you.